Welcome to the Stories with Traction podcast. I'm your host, Matt ZAUN. Thank you for joining us as we uncover how stories are one of the most important aspects of your business. We'll talk about struggles, victories, and how you can utilize strategic storytelling to inspire those around you to action. Enjoy this episode. So today I am extra excited, and the reason why is I wake up this morning, and one of the first things that I do in my morning routine, whether it's right or wrong, is I go and I log on to my email, which can be very overwhelming because I am constantly bombarded with emails. And if you are like me listening to this, you may have come to the point where you want to rip your hair out with how many emails you get. So I'm excited because today I have with me Melissa Moody, who is the founder and head of marketing of Gated. And she has a very interesting and creative way on how to actually deal with the amount of emails that we get. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, Matt. I'm so sorry that you, like the rest of us, are dealing with way too much irrelevant email in your morning.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people go through that. And, we are in the new year and people have New Year's resolutions, and a lot of people don't just focus on weight and health, but they also focus on what can I do from a time management perspective, less screen time, less social media consumption time, how could we shift from spending too much time on needless emails? So I think that this is super relevant because I've seen it. I'm primarily focused on LinkedIn. That's my social media channel of choice. And I see so many people focused on time management strategies in the new year. So I think it's very applicable and relevant to where we are. So before we dive in to a little bit more about Gated and what you do, I do want to talk a little bit about your background, your origin story as well. So can you tell people a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, whether it's education or what led you to Gated?
Absolutely. Well, most recently, I actually spent almost 14 years at Google. So I won't go into depth on that, but I've spent a long time on the digital side of marketing. My background specifically is working on the challenge of large advertisers bringing people both from the moment that they see a brand all the way through to conversion. And so I'm very passionate about helping great products kind of exist in a way that users can find those products, engage with the products, and then connect with the products from start to finish. Now, that was with much, much larger partners when I was at Google, but after many years of being active in our local entrepreneurship groups and startup weekends and trying to mentor and guide startups, I really decided that I wanted to get boots on the ground at a startup, and I wanted to feel what it feels like, the joys and the pains of small startup life. And to bring a new and innovative solution to the market was really what I was dreaming of doing for the many, many past years. When the chance came to work with Gated last Christmas or so, last holiday season, I jumped, with both feet in and decided that it was time to take my broader skill set of marketing and bring it to bear on a really important product. And something that has been a challenge and a joy has been learning the ground up components of startup marketing, but it has been really wonderful, both from a network perspective, meeting other amazing people, and also from a personal growth perspective of working on things that are really a challenge, which frankly, for me is what gets me operating at about 500% is when I'm challenged and pushed to think about things in a different way. So yeah, excited to talk about Gated. Thanks for having me again, Matt.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm excited to talk about Gated too. I think it's an incredibly creative idea. So I do want to dive into that, but I feel like I can't just breeze over the name drop of Google.
Oh,
So
sure.
Google is like so many people's dream job, and Google is like the pinnacle of success if you can work at Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or some of these massive platforms. Google is very revered in many spaces. So take me through that a little bit. So were you in school and you were trying to angle for a job at Google? Did like an internship come up? How in the world did Google come about?
Yeah, no, great question. I was a little bit out of college when I first started at Google. So I was in Seattle in 2007, and I had previously actually I have my master's in education. I have a
Oh,
bachelor's of
interesting.
yeah, I have a BS in education, and oh, that doesn't sound great. I'm a bachelor's of science in education, and I worked for many years with students at the high school level with language-based learning disabilities. That was actually what I did coming out of college. Um, Fascinating job, fascinating, challenging job, but very rewarding. And what I did really as a teacher was able to spin into marketing when I moved to Seattle in 2007 and decided to get shifted into marketing. What I found was that as a teacher, you are challenged to deliver a message. You have an audience, you have a message, and what you're judged on is whether that message resonates with your audience. Now, fundamentally, that's marketing, right? That's exactly what marketing is. And so when I moved and couldn't find kind of the right place for my skill set, I actually desired a faster paced environment. And so I put my application out and I did the normal job search in Seattle. And I was very lucky enough to get a position at Google in 2007. The office was only about 35 people in Seattle. Now I think it's probably close to 1,000 and another 1,000 in Kirkland. But at the time, it was a very small office. And I tell you, I got all the benefits of early stage Google in that it was small, a very tight group of people, very brilliant, brilliant people. I mean, really, that's the number one perk of working at Google, despite the coffees and the exciting, pinball room that we had for the engineers. It's the people. There were really phenomenal folks in our Seattle office, and it stayed that way for many, many years. I over the 14 years, my job obviously evolved through different things. I was an industry analyst. I worked as a marketing manager for the travel industry. So I spent most of my time working with Airbnb and Expedia and companies of that nature. But really, I would say, besides the really smart people at Google, the other main perk of working at Google is that I was able to travel office to office, and I got exposure to so many different parts of the company through my time there. And that was really, really appreciated. By the time I left last year, it wasn't that I was out of runway. It was that I needed something new. And so Google has grown exponentially over the last few years, as you know,
Sure.
and it's really a different company. And I find that I thrive in that small, super fast paced environment. And it was just time for me to find something new.
Sure. All right. So a few things. So you mentioned Seattle.
Mhm.
So I spoke in Seattle 4 times last year. I actually have another speaking engagement in Seattle coming up in March. I am pumped about Seattle's it's becoming one of my favorite cities to speak in. So for
Okay.
anyone listening that's never been to Seattle, my first time in Seattle, I remember getting off the plane. I guess
Yep.
my perception being out on the East Coast is rainy or whatever the perception was, but I get off the plane, not a cloud in the sky. And I'm driving. It was the first time that I saw Mount Rainier. And I almost got into a car accident because it's so unbelievably stunningly beautiful. We don't have that in Philadelphia. We don't have mountains like that out here. So I was just blown away. So that was my first time in Seattle. Just there's, as you know, there's so many spots that are just absolutely gorgeous with
Well,
greenery and mountains. Wait, what's that?
everybody take fair warning because Matt apparently went to Seattle on one of the perfect days. Seattle summers are like nothing you've ever experienced. They're absolutely wonderful. But
It was
that
in the summer. Yeah.
that rain does exist. Don't be, yeah.
Yeah, don't be fooled by this. Yeah, go in the summer. All right, so you're in Seattle, you're working for Google. So what led you to Alaska?
Oh, great question. Actually, that brings me to one of the best parts of Google, which is I had some incredible managing directors. One of whom, when I went into him and talked about moving to Alaska as a personal decision for my family, my husband was born and raised here.
Oh,
Um, I said, I'm sorry, we need to move. We've made a family decision. And so I'll be quitting. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, no. And I said, well, I'm quitting. I'm leaving now. And he said, no, absolutely not. Do what you do it as well as you do, just do it from a different place. Now, this was 5 years prior to working remotely for this COVID mess that we're in right now.
sure.
So he, had the prescience to say, I have someone who is an amazing worker. I'm confident in what she does. We're in a world where technology exists beautifully. I mean, Google's very much at the forefront of being able to work remotely and with all the technology at our disposal. And so, 5 years prior to COVID, it was what year was it? I'm trying to think. We moved up here in about 2014, 2015. And I worked very happily, very productively, had even some other job changes and continued getting different roles for Google from Alaska for 5 years. Now, Google necessarily wasn't as on board with it, but my managing director was. And he said, this is going to happen. And, what I love in my entire career is when you find someone who empowers their team, who says, you are smart, you are worth it, do what you need to do as a person. I mean, that's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. So I will always, I'm still very much connected with that mentor of mine, and I will always aspire to be a leader like that.
Sure. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. All right. So they worked with you to transition to Alaska, and then through different roles, you got different ideas regarding Gated. Is that where it started?
Yeah, actually, no, Gated. So Gated, my co-founder was the one who created Gated. And I've, funny story, I've known him since I was born, actually. My co-founder is actually my brother.
There you go. Awesome.
He
Family
is
business.
Right, exactly. He's 8 years older than I am, and he has always had brilliant ideas. He's been a GTM exec at, or a marketing ops exec at many Silicon Valley companies, at Box and Culture Amp and things of that nature. And he's had this idea for quite a while. I did not even hear about it until probably 2 years earlier than today. And so he had been working on this idea of Gated for a while. I'll explain kind of how it came around. But really, after I left Google, so I chose to leave Google with nothing on the back end. I just decided it was time for me to find something more scrappy, more startup-ish. I wanted to get involved. So I was doing lots of different freelancing consulting projects post Google, and did some pro bono time working as a marketing consultant for his vision of Gated. Now, at that time, Gated really was just a vision. He had hacked together a solution out of Airtable and Zapier, and had a couple of early happy users. And when I came on board, we really transitioned it into more of a concerted effort to bring a solution to market. He had really put in all the work on finding the proof points, making sure that Gated was something the market wanted. And, I guess it would have been fall of 2020. It became very clear that both users wanted Gated, investors were interested in Gated, and the market was ready to kind of lay the roadmap for Gated to turn into something bigger than this amazing vision that he had from the get-go.
That's great. All right. So let's dive into Gated. Yeah. One of the things that I had said in the beginning was about just being bombarded with emails. And I think everyone goes through that. I mean, I think there are very few people that would say, I need more people to just randomly email me. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning asking for that. So you have a very creative solution regarding minimizing or having more sound emails, right? Actually, intentional emails. Mm-hmm. So do you want to walk people through the process and what Gated can do for someone like myself that has this I feel like I'm being attacked by emails every day. So what would be the solution for something like that?
Yeah, happy to. So what's funny is that Gated fundamentally is a very simple solution. I'm guessing that you, like most people, have tried a lot of things, right? We are living in a world where digital pollution is increasing and it is painful. We're being hit from everywhere, as you mentioned, and folks have tried a lot of things, but I will say to date, the general gist is you're going to get all of this email, and then it's your job to get rid of it. And, filter it out, folder it out, unsubscribe, spend hours triaging this mess of email. Gated came about because we believe that is absolutely no longer the way we should be thinking about it. So fundamentally, Gated is a very simple solution. When someone that you don't know or trust emails you, Matt, they're going to get a challenge email that asks them to donate to a nonprofit of your choice in order to reach you. So it's a very simple solution at the core, but it's a very, very big vision. What we've had for so many years are tools in place to empower the senders. There's so much marketing automation on the sender side. And what we do is we're actually giving power back to the user of email. We're saying, no, it shouldn't all be on them to send you more emails or more personalized emails and just dump it on you. You should have a say in what comes into your inbox or not in the first place. And so really it's kind of the first tool for buyer automation and email. It's the first tool that's giving you the power to say, whoa, on an automated way, I'm going to decide if it's worth my time or not. Yeah.
So, all right. So a few things with that. So I'll throw this out there because you brought up a really good point that a lot of times we try to empower the sender. So someone that's in sales or marketing, there's a lot of different tools out there to empower the sender.
Yeah.
So this will continue to get scary. So I think that your solution will be even more important. Here's what I mean by that. I'm very close with a gentleman who actually I'll have on this podcast a little bit later. I won't go into his background or detail, but basically he is a marketing genius, and he's worked out so many different, not just automation, but utilizing AI for automation for senders. And he basically said, they're so good at what they do, it's almost impossible to recognize if it's an automated email or if it's actually from a personal, like a real human being. They study people's backgrounds, and they can send you emails where you actually think that is directed at you. So and you know that, but I'm prefacing that because everyone that's listening, the next few years is going to get worse for the receiver, not better. It's going to get much better for the sender. Like you said, like there's going to be so many tools where, hey, you want to sell a product or service, you could really make it look like it's coming from a human being. But the danger is that just means that there's going to be more noise. There's just going to be more emails. There's just going to be more, like, how in the world can you actually put up any kind of wall or gatekeeper? And it goes back to your point where this empowers the receiver on, okay, if this is an automated email and there's numerous of these emails, like tons of these emails coming in, what can I actually do? And gate it, correct me if I'm wrong, but could be a solution for that.
Absolutely. I mean, one other thing I'll add to that is many of your users have probably heard of product-led growth. I mean, there's a trend out there where we used to, sellers used to sell a piece of software to the CEO or to the CTO, right? There was one buyer, there was one seller, one buyer. We live in this product-led growth world now where, think about things like, if you don't know the term, think about things like Loom or Calendly, where you're selling to individual users, and then those users are essentially adopting it up into more of a B2B enterprise solution. And so what's happened is now, not only is there more automation to hit the buyers, but there are more buyers. All of a sudden, not just the CEO and the CTO are the buyers of these softwares, but everyone, from mid-level to senior level is now officially a buyer. So there are more tools to reach you, and there are more people being sold to, which means there's more pain, right? There is more overwhelm, and there haven't been the tools to fix that. Now, I will say there are a lot of amazing companies out there trying to fix email. But again, to my earlier point, they're fixing it kind of under this old paradigm, which is everything's going to come into your inbox and then you deal with it. And what Gated is saying is that we need to put a lens of curation on the inbox, not lock it down, not say, I don't want to hear from anybody, but we need to put a lens of does this matter to me? Is this important to me and my business? And if it's not, we believe you shouldn't even have to see it. It shouldn't be something you then need to file away or filter away. And so, I would say to folks like that gentleman who's going to be on the podcast, and to anyone else who is receiving this overload of email, that really and I forgot to mention, but Gated is extremely simple. It's free to the user, right? There's a lot of tools out there that are $30 a month, et cetera. It's also something you can turn on in minutes. You don't have to change your workflow. And we know that these marketing executives, these leaders are extremely, really busy. So we've made a solution that is both free and easy. And within, weeks or days or hours even of turning it on, you start to see the benefit. So the average reduction in inbox is 43%. We've seen a lot higher than that. And that's just across the board. And people are finding, their inbox is transformed. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no. So you brought up a lot of good points. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure their inbox is transformed, but also I think there's a little bit of a mental health aspect to it too, because Absolutely. We're spending so much time sorting through stuff that we don't need to be doing. We could be spending more time with our family or doing like recreational things, people that just me having time set aside to exercise sometimes is tough with all the stuff that I have to go through. So yeah, you may be tweaking someone's inbox, but it actually has a bigger implication positively on their life. So let's talk more like practicality. All right. So imagine someone is an executive, they're a key target for people to send emails to.
Right.
So let's say they utilize gated, and they are going to they can pick different nonprofits that they can set up for funds to go to. Is that right?
Yes. So the way we've structured gated is that the gated user, so whoever is using gated, they're the one who get to pick the nonprofit that benefits right now. And we found that for our users, there are really three kind of huge benefits to gated. The first is reducing the email. I mean, as you said, just looking at less mess, in the mornings is critical. We have one early user who's actually a very high profile investor, and he gets hundreds of emails overnight, right? So in the morning, if he didn't have gated, he would be absolutely underwater. So the reduction in emails. The second piece is, like I mentioned before, we're not locking down the inbox. We're trying to actually create better connections. So a lot of these executives appreciate the value of a good sales email, but you can't even see them now. You can't see the good ones for the mess of the bots, right? And so what gated does is, if there is a good sender on the side, they can make that donation and get through and stand out. And actually, some really amazing connections have been made from our users because they were able to see it. And then the third one, to your point, is all of a sudden we're kind of creating this value for nonprofits out of, I won't say thin air. It is coming from marketing budgets, but the nonprofit side of things, it's not even really about the dollars. It's about the fact that an executive can align their personal brand with a nonprofit that matters to them. So instead of just saying, I'm trying to reach Mike, the CEO of XYZ, you can, the sender is able to see that what matters to Mike is big brothers, big sisters. And there may be a great conversation there. Or it may be, the Autism Society of America, and he has a connection there that really means something to this person. So the layering in of the nonprofits, and it's not core to what Gated does, but we do feel as a company, it's such an important piece of the gated user, right? You're not just a CEO, you are a CEO who has something that really means something to you, a nonprofit that means something to you. And it's a way to align with those powerful causes.
Okay. All right. So that makes more sense. So someone that has a bunch of sales emails that come through to their inbox, they set up gated, the individual sending it is going to get prompted, hey, thank you so much for your email. I guess they would be able to really choose and customize the verbiage that goes back, but basically they would be prompted to donate X, Y, and Z to a nonprofit of their choice. So let's say they chose the United Way, a local United Way. They would put a donation to the United Way, and then they would be able to send them that email, right?
Yeah. It's a 1-click or maybe 2-click process where they'll receive an email. It says, in order to reach Matt's inbox, please click here to donate to Matt's nonprofit of choice, the United Way, and your message will be delivered to his inbox. There is also, just to make people comfortable, there is actually another call to action, which is, if you got this by mistake and Matt personally, please click here, and they'll come right into your inbox. But yeah, and one thing I wanted to point out is the payments to the nonprofit are actually are marginal. So we start with $1, $2. We do allow the sender to pay more if they'd like to get your attention, or because it means something to them. We've actually seen donations as high as $100, purely voluntary. To get into someone's inbox right now, I think our highest user is maybe $3. So this is not a massive barrier. This is simply a signal, hey, there's someone who cares on the end of this. It's not just an AI bot pushing email into your inbox. Let's have a conversation. I'd like to, I see that this matters to you. Let's talk. I value your attention, right?
So there's a huge psychological element is what I'm hearing, because if you are a sales representative and you're not willing to pay $1, then do you really align with that person's core values? Do you really align with their DNA? Which would be no, right? If you're not willing to spend $1. So I think there's a psychological element, like you're buying into their vision, their mission. It's interesting to me that people are cutting 43% of their inbox based on $1 to $3. That really goes to speak to the level of automation, the level of just aggressive sales emails that people are getting, where the sender doesn't really necessarily care that much about them. It's just making a quick sale.
Absolutely. I wish I had it on the tip of my tongue. I won't say an incorrect number, but the volume of automated sent emails on a daily basis it's staggering. Oh, I wish I had that number right handy. I think it's something like, it's up in the multiple billions, like 3.9 billion a day of emails that are being sent that aren't coming from humans. And so fundamentally, there's that problem. And then there is the other problem, to your point, of if someone's not willing to pay $1 to a nonprofit, is that worth my attention at all? I would say no, right? I would say that someone should think about it this way. Think about what all these folks would pay if they're sending swag or sending gifts or buying someone a drink, right? Like, you're trying to get a buyer's attention. And probably the best way to do that is by paying for something that matters to them in their heart, and also by being ready to pay and to say that this is worth your attention. I'm not just sending this email because it's free, which is what we're doing today. Email has been a free channel for a very long time, and we do expect that this is a disruptive element. Although I will say, probably some of our biggest fans are the senders of email. I mentioned before, but our founder, Andy, he was a major GTM exec. The teams that he had worked for had sent millions and millions of email. He was responsible for some of this pain, right? And so what's really interesting is he created it from a spot of, I've felt the pain and I've created the pain. And what we're finding is that the senders who are good senders that really want to reach people through email couldn't love Gated more. And I'll tell you why. Those people have been getting, less than 1% reply rates. Deliverability is awful for email right now. You send out, so many, and send out 100, you get 1 back. Mm-hmm. With Gated, our vision is that you can send out 10 emails and get 5 back. The reply rate on an email to someone who's been gated, and when you pay to get through, is 60% and up. So that is transformational for senders. They're able to actually reach the people they want to.
Sure. You're lessening the noise. If you're cutting people's inbox almost in half, they're going to see you stick out versus the other automated emails that really aren't worth their time. So no, that's a really good point, that senders shouldn't be concerned about this. They should feel empowered that they're going to cut through some of that noise easier and quicker.
Right.
So take me through just the next few months, maybe Q1, maybe the rest of the year. What would be the vision for Gated from a goal perspective for users? Is there a certain user amount you're trying to hit? Are there certain markets that you're trying to target right now nationally? What would be the big vision that you have in the months ahead?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. We have some really exciting things coming up in 2022. So we have to date been onboarding users little by little, and we have a wait list right now. So if you go to our site today, you'll sign up. If you are kind of the right target user, you may be able to get Gated today, but it's effectively a wait list. In late February, we have been working on a new platform that is built for massive scale, and we are going to be opening up Gated to everyone to do kind of a self-serve, probably 3-click process to say, I want Gated, click it and get it. So in February, it's going to be very exciting because really anybody who'd like to get Gated can get it at that point. We will still be for Google-based emails at this point, but we are hoping to fast follow for those of you still on Microsoft, of course. But I think, moving past just a broader public launch, which is very exciting for us, we are rapidly working toward this vision of making your inbox and really the world a better place. I think you will see ongoing developments from Gated that are focused on the user. We're really building a user-first product. So if you use email and you are getting a lot of inbound email, and you don't need to be to be seeing a lot of cold contacts, right? So this is any mid to senior executive that's not a sales executive could probably really, really benefit from turning on Gated today. But for that core user, we're going to be really releasing a lot of features that are helping you focus better, bring your attention to the forefront. Your attention is what's valuable. And Gated is pretty much the only solution out there that really is laser focused on you and your attention, as opposed to simply fighting against the onslaught of email in general.
Sure. No, it's a very valuable point. So where can people find you? Where can they find out more information about Gated?
Yeah, well, Gated is easy. It's gated.com. That's GATED.com. And here's the fun thing. Because I have my email gated, I have no fear about telling you my email. So anyone can email me at melissa@gated.com. And then, it's fun because folks will get the experience, but also, let's face it, people think their email is private, but it's not anymore. There are so many tools out there to scrape your email, especially if you're an executive at a company. People can find your work email, not people even, tools and solutions are out there to scrape those emails. So your email is not private, but with Gated, you don't have to keep pretending it is. You can simply give people your email, and then there is a barrier to see if what they send you is actually worth your time. So yeah, you can email me at melissa@gated.com. Happy to chat Gated anytime, and really, really glad to share it. I'm very excited for February when everyone can kind of get their hands on it and give it a go.
Yeah, I'm glad we had this conversation now because I'm excited to see, just the continued journey of where you're going. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I'm a huge believer in nonprofits. I think they do a lot of work for the community, so you're helping them. I am very big on focusing on performance management versus time management at times where, okay, like how do you actually perform in a given time? I feel like email has crushed our ability to do that as a society. So you're handling that problem as well. I think that's going to empower people to not only not be stressed out about the email, but they're going to be able to put their time into things that actually matter versus going through email. I think there's such a danger because so many people feel more accomplished when they go through their emails that there's this idea that I have to get through all these emails, even if it's garbage, I at least have to put them in a spam folder, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, which takes time. And this is a way that people can feel more accomplished quicker, that they got through their emails in a speedier time, and they're the right emails. They're actually emails that they want to open. So I appreciate your time. I value and I admire and I respect what you're doing on multiple fronts. So thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us and for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. If you have a story that you would like to share, feel free to drop an email to matt@mattzahn.com with the subject line Stories with Traction. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share tons of resources on how you can be a better storyteller. Remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.